So now that we've seen how the buttons can roll over and do exactly what we want them to do, remember that when we press these buttons, they're going to their respective keyframes that we have here. And as we mentioned, we could have left everything on this first frame, but it's better to put things out this way so that we can take advantage of the browser's back button by using these anchors. So, having said that, what we now need to do is to determine what's going to happen when we do in fact get to that anchored area here called author, or killer sites, or anything else for that matter. So let's start in this order and we'll see what we're going to do. If you remember, one of the most important things that we need to do is actually load the movie clip that we need. So what I'm going to say here is, first and foremost, a little comment. I'll say call the MCL, or movie clip loader, right, to load the SWF. Oh, sorry, let me just spell that correctly. To load the SWF. Okay, so if you remember, how in fact do we do that? Well, you know, we don't have to say level 0 or anything. We're on level 0, so all we really need to say is my MCL, as we normally do, and is standard common practice. I mean, we see this in most development projects. So as you can see, we've got the myMCL, and what did we want that myMCL to do? Well, we're going to tell it to load clip. And which clip do we want to tell it to load? Well, let's give it the URL. And in this case, it's going to be killersites.swf. Right? And we'll put a comma here, and we'll tell it to load this onto level 5, just like what we've done before. And now that we've got that set up for this particular frame, why don't we just copy this information, and we're going to paste it on all the other frames as well. And in doing it this way, notice I'm going to show you a little trick. I'll just open this up here and I'll paste. Oh, I guess I didn't copy it, but check it out. Here's what we can do. Go back to frame 10 just by selecting this information. I'll press Control C, come here and press Control V. Now this time we're at the, if you remember, author section, right? So let's put in author.swf right here as well. Okay, we can go now to frame 30 and do the same thing for the portfolio SWF. And finally, we'll come here to frame 40 where we'll do the same thing for the contact. Let's save this, preview it in our browser, and let's see, there's the author. Notice that I have to still style the SWF here. Portfolio, that's great. Contact, works well, just needs some CSS. That's easily fixed. However, here's the problem. Number one, when I click on the author section, I want this to be disabled, not enabled the way it is here. And I also want the killer sites button to become enabled again instead of disabled as it is here. So it's not only enough to do what we're doing here. If we want to have the enabling and disabling of our buttons, we're going to have to also create one last function, which we will call in just a second. So in order to do that, what I'm going to ask you to do is to go back to your master file on the first frame of the action scripting layer. We'll open up these actions, and right at the beginning where we start the text formatting, remember, just after the definition of the new text format objects, I'm going to ask you to do is to create a new function. And first and foremost, it's not a callback function, it's just a regular function, and we're going to have to give it a name. So I will call it btext re-enable. And now that we have btext re-enable, we'll just get the regular brackets in place. And now what we'll do is put in a little bit of information. So, number one, remember what we're doing with this. Whenever we call this function, we're setting all of the buttons to be white, enabled again, and then specifically addressing the one that pressed it. So we'll see that in a second. So look, first thing we're going to do is to make them all turn white again. So in order to do that, we're going to target the buttons as we see here, right? You see, just like this, author MC, right? And we're going to say make these buttons enabled true. So remember what we did over here, sorry, where we said killer sites MC enabled false, right? So I'm going to take this particular one, and instead of enabled false, we're going to say enabled true, the Boolean value true. So we're going to do that for all of these buttons. So remember author MC, well, let's put in author MC. And we'll say enabled true. There you go. And we also had one for portfolio MC. And we'll tell this to be enabled true. And finally, contact MC will also be enabled true. So in other words, when this particular function is called, bang, all of the buttons can work again. They'll act like buttons again, right? They'll give you the finger, but they'll still be orange.